Morning, good afternoon for our third, fourth, fifth new signing in recent weeks. Seems like we're constant rentals here at the Grosvenor House Hotel, and it gives me huge pleasure today. Perhaps we've signed some big names and some big champions over the last few weeks, but I have to say this one particularly makes me very, very excited. I know Lee doesn't say too much at the moment. That's going to change over the next few days and months, but for me, I think now we've signed one of the most exciting, promising and talented young fighters in Britain at the moment. And a lot of people in boxing who I respect told me a great deal about Lee Selby, and you know, one of those obviously was Chris Sanagar, but to see it firsthand in Northern Ireland recently, and actually a performance which I don't think he was overly pleased with, and Chris wasn't even overly pleased with, where he went into a atmospheric, quite ferocious crowd and really won every round against a very decent fighter in Martin Lindsay. This kid, for me, has one of the most exciting styles I've ever seen. He can punch, he can move, he's got swagger, he's just got something about him when I look at him and think he's going to be a future champion of the world. And I said on Twitter recently, I know Kevin Mitchell said to me that nothing's certain in boxing, and you're quite right, but I would put, you know, a significant wager. I was going to say my house, but just in case something went wrong, I quite like my house. But this kid's going to be a world champion. I honestly believe that. I think he's got all the skills, the attributes to become a world champion. And I know that's a bold statement, but really that's the ambition that we've got with Lee Selby. We want to build him into a superstar. He's got the ability and the skills to become a superstar, but at the moment he's a big name in boxing, in the boxing community. I want to turn him into a big name outside of that community. I want to start building shows around him in Wales, and I want to build him into a big superstar, just like we've done with Kell Brook, just like we've done with Tony Bellew, just like we've done with Carl Frampton. He's got all the ability to be able to do something like that, and I'm very excited about the journey ahead. Just to give you a couple of quick bits of news about the short-term plans, April the 20th in Blackpool, Lee's going to be fighting, most likely defending his British and Commonwealth title, and we were just talking about a potential opponent there. Joe Murray is someone who we think is a really great fighter. We'll be making him an offer this afternoon. I know he's been looking for action, but straight out on April the 20th, and then June the 15th in Cardiff with Gavin Rees, co-featuring both of those in a big show in Cardiff. We want to go after the European title and then get him out as quickly as possible. You know, give him plenty of fights, plenty of action, plenty of activity, and as we strive to win that world title. I'm already looking at different governing bodies and routes in which we can take, and you know, I'm very excited about the journey ahead with Lee. To say a few words, someone who's instrumental in the sign and tell you a little bit more about Lee Selby, certainly educated me about Lee and really the incredible talent that he has. I want Chris Sanagar to say a few words.
Well, like Eddie has said, you know, he's an extraordinary talent, and I believe it's an example to every professional boxer, because Lee started the hard way. He started on non-television shows, you know, just small shows, and now he's built himself up to here, and this is really got to give heart to every professional boxer who turns professional. You don't need to be an Amir Khan. You don't need to be, you know, a James DeGaulle, you know, with an Olympic medal. If you're a dedicated person and you have the skill and the talent, you will rise to the top. Yes, it is a lot more difficult, you know, than having a golden path set before you. But Lee Selby is, you know, the example that someone can come off these non-TV shows and you know, rise to the top. You know, as I said, he is a great talent. I've taken Lee Selby to Las Vegas and LA, and he's trained and sparred out there in the American gyms. And let me tell you a story that we went into Johnny Tocco's gym, just the two of us. Anyway, there was a lot of fighters and you know, and it was difficult to get ourselves into the ring. And anyway, we hung around. I kept asking, and eventually someone said, look, yeah, we got somebody coming in. would you like to hold on? I said, yeah. I said, what's his name? And they just said, Chewy. I said, Chewy? And they said, yeah, you know. I said, oh, okay. You know, and we just had to take things. So I was thinking, I wonder who it is. I tried to, you know, I couldn't fit. But his name was Jesus Gutierrez. I think he was like something like 5 or 6-0. And I thought, oh, yeah, that'd be okay. But anyway, we went out into the back room in Johnny Tacos and got ready. I told Lee that, get your hands up. Anyway, when I looked over, you know, he was a big lightweight. You know, he was very thick set, small and squat. So I said to Lee, look, just get behind your jab, don't get flash. Just get behind your jab and just work. Anyway, just prior to them starting, they were all gloved up. I heard a couple of these Mexicans and that and say, I hope there's an ambulance outside. Yeah, and you know, I looked and I just said, listen, go out there and show them what we can do. And you know, Lee went out there and first of all, they was meant to do four rounds. Anyway, the thing, and Lee was boxing his head off. The other guy kept trying, throwing these big bombs, and theirs went off. And then they sort of, after 3 rounds, and they said, you can do 6, can't you? I said, yeah, no problem, we'll do 6. And he just carried on boxing his head off. And afterwards, you know, he got the whole respect of the gym. And you know, and there's lots and lots of stories I can tell you about Lee Selby like that. You know, that was Johnny Tacos, and that on lots of occasions when he's been in Mayweather, the whole gym stops when he sparred, and they're banging the canvas like that when he's in there, and they call it the doghouse. And likewise the same, exactly the same. He sparred a couple of guys, and then Mayweather's tried to bring somebody in to bump him off again. And you know, but Lee, in the time that he sparred in Mayweather's, I don't believe he lost a round. You know, and you know, this is what we've got with Lee Selby. We've got someone special that I think eventually he can go over stateside and do the British proud.
Thanks, Chris. And Lee, I know you're a man of few words, but excited about the future.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me the team Matchroom. I'm very excited to fight on Sky Sports. And like Chris said, I started from the bottom on the small horse shows. I've worked my way up to this position. And hopefully with your help and Chris's help and my trainer Tony Borg, Team Selby, hopefully it's my time to shine now.
What's the ambition? How far do you think you can go? Because I think you're going to be a great fighter.
I believe I'll be a world champion.
Good.
I would bet my house on
Would you? Let's both do it. It'd be more fun. We'll both do it.
Yeah? His house is smaller than yours.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. It's still a house. It's still a house.
Well, you seem to lack no confidence in the ring, and in the Belfast fight, you know, you probably got maybe a little overconfident perhaps. But that is the way you box, yeah?
Yeah, I'm confident. You can put me in with Vitaly Klitschko, I'm confident I'll beat him. That's just my attitude to fight.
Yeah. You're not going to change the style of boxing. You're going to be as flashy as you.
Tighten up on my defensive. Right? Sometimes I get a bit complacent and I get caught with stupid shots I don't have to. But I'm going to tighten up my defense.
Have you been tagged properly yet?
Yeah.
No.
I spar with heavyweights in the gym. I've never been hurt.
No. So you're pretty confident of your chin.
Very confident. I've got the best chin in boxing.
Do you take satisfaction from having done it the hard way?
Pardon?
Do you take satisfaction from having done it?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't been given no meal ticket. I've worked hard. I've come right from the bottom to where I am now.
I think that's something that's important, particularly with the Olympic dawn coming before us, where a lot of these fighters who come out with medals and Olympic experience will get plenty of opportunities. But for me, I like the ones that haven't really had the opportunities because they've always worked harder, and I think they're made of sterner stuff. And you know, I think Lee knows he's had to work hard to get to a situation, and now there's plenty more hard work to do, but we've got the platform now to go on and have those big fights and get him the exposure and the money that he deserves.
I say I've been kept in the dark, but I believe what's done in the dark will come to light eventually. And I think it's my time to shine now.
You never thought about going, like Andrew stayed amateur, you thought about going that route?
No, I was more interested in the money. Yeah.
Chris, there's a lot of good fighters, people like Dean Francis and Glenn Catley and obviously Ross Hale. How does Lee compare?
Yeah, Lee compares, you know, with all of them. Lots of times I try to think back with Dean Francis, because I think Dean Francis was with 6 world champions, you know, on his way up. And I try and look back at the records and think, trying to remember how good Dean, because often, lots of times I talk about Dean Francis to Lee, and he always says, well, who do you think was better? Who do you think was better? And just recently we've been having Lee over to the gym, and Dean Francis has been showing him a few moves and that. So, you know, naturally Glenn Catley went through to become WBC champion. I had him from a 14-year-old boy all the way through. So, you know, it's very interesting to see things. Sometimes they're better at certain aspects in boxing than Lee is, and Lee is better at other aspects, you know. So, but you know, our goal is to make him champion, you know, and be the most successful of our boxers, you know. Dean Francis was undefeated European champion, Catley, you know, WBC champion, and you know, sadly only held it for the one fight. But you know, Catley again the same, done it the hard way, had a final eliminator in Canada, and then went to Germany and win the title. So you know, hopefully Lee might have it a little bit easier. But he has great talent, and he has talent to equal anyone here in the UK.
So the plan is to win the Lonsdale belt outright, then the European, and
yes.
Will he be able to stay strong at the weight? Because he seems very big for the weight.
Yes, you know, and you know, it's not a thing. He seems to be able to do the weight sort of at 8'12", you know, 8'12 and a half, you know. So even underneath the thing, it's not like he's trying to kill himself and we're coming bang on 9 stone. You know, he's coming in at 9'13". So yeah.